Have a look at this last move played by Leon Mendonca, the young GM from India, against none other than Hans Niemann, a super GM now, 2708 rated. Leon is just 2603 rated, and this game was brilliant. So let's have a look at how Leon Mendonca defeated Hans Niemann in 41 moves. Leon played d4, Hans Niemann plays knight f6, and we have c4, e6, g3, and c5. Catalan opening. Hans decides to go for a dynamic setup as black. Risky, but dynamic. Takes, and d6. This is the typical Catalan structure, and it's still a mystery whether black is actually fine here or is it a good opening. So top players play this. Even Magnus Carlsen prefers this as white a lot of times. Knight c3, pawn g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, and knight f3. Castles, rook e8, and here bishop f4. h6, queen c1, and g5. Bishop comes back. So the pawn structure is a little bit weird for black. That restricts the development of black's pieces. This pawn is not allowing knight to come to the desirable c6 square. Knight d7 and h4. Knight g4, bishop d2. Pawn f6 and b4. This is a nice pawn sacrifice, a thematic pawn sacrifice by Leon. The point is, if pawn takes a knight b5, threatening knight takes d6, and bishop will take back the pawn later, like one move later. So that becomes active for white. So Hans plays b6, but still knight b5 happens. Threatening d6. So Hans defends it with knight e5. The queen defends the pawn. Now takes and takes. The b file is opened, queen c2, queen d7, and rook b1. Here Hans decides to kick the knight. Knight goes back to a3, heading to the nice c4 square, trying to get to b6 and keeping pressure on d6. Queen f5. So Hans decides to go to the endgame because he's got a nice pass pawn and he has got ideas of f5 afterwards. So takes, and knight takes, knight takes. Here pawn e4. Leon plays accurately here, and bishop g6 is a slight error. The bishop was much needed on both sides of the board. But then bishop g6 and now f4. Very good move, gaining space. Knight went back. If pawn takes back, then Leon would have no problems taking back with the pawn itself. So knight back and now f5. So white has taken more space in the middle of the board. Bishop is forced to go to h5 and now rook f2. The best move of the engine here actually is king f2, but no human is going to play this king f2 move. Right? It's so basically the idea is after takes, the rook would be needed on the g file. So king is more active here. Leon actually brings the king to f2 later, so the computer sees it now itself that the king is useful in the center where it can defend the e4 pawn is needed if needed. So rook f2 takes, and knight e5. So black's compensation for the weird pawn structure is for the lack of spaces. There's a nice knight sitting on e5. Black's bishop is bad though, and the dark light squared bishop is doing a good job. And white has the b file as of now. So can you play rook b8? It was an option before knight e5. Rook b8 was definitely an option. So after rook b8, something like bishop c3 would anyway happen, putting pressure on f6. So Hans decides to go knight e5 first, bishop c3, and now knight d3, attacking the rook. Rook moves to c2, knight went back to f4. Rook e1, and then rook a7. Slightly weird move, but he's giving extra support to the bishop because the g file is open. After knight takes, rook takes, you would need some support. And it stops any rook from coming into b7. Now knight c4. Here d6 is hanging, so bishop f8 and then king h2. Preparing rook g1 and bishop moves anyway. I mean bishop h3, rook g1, rook g2. If the knight takes the bishop. Knight takes on g2 anyway. Rook takes back, check, king h7. So Hans is preparing to deal with the rooks on the g file. Right now, rook g1 is not possible because the pawn hangs over here. And rook g3, nice move, keeping control of the position, just gaining a little bit of space and activating the rook a little bit more, and basically waiting. And Hans Niemann played bishop e7, defending the f6 pawn, which was hanging. Now rook g1. If you're giving white a chance to go rook g7, that'll be great for white, right? Or yeah. So here bishop f8. Hans is repeating. Leon has to come back to defend the pawn. No other way to defend, right? Knight d2 is a bit too passive. Again, bishop e7. Hans is saying, I am in a difficult situation. I am okay with the draw. Leon plays king g2. So this is where we see computers are so much better than chess as compared to normal humans. because the king is now coming to f2, and then rook g1 would be useful. So rook goes back and king f2. Rook b8, taking control of the b file, but there's no entry point. Everything is covered. Rook g1, and now bishop f8. But here, Leon decides to strike at the right moment. Can you find out his next move? What would you play here? Would you repeat with rook e1, defending the pawn? Would you go passive with knight d2? Or the third and the best option, bishop takes f6. You can't take the pawn. What happens if black takes the pawn? Then there is rook g7. And if bishop takes, you lose material initially, but after king moves, you gain everything back. You can play rook b7 or rook g4 and win back the rook. So you'll be a piece up. After bishop f6, Hans doesn't take the pawn. He plays a different blunder. So the only way to hold on, this position is already gone actually. There is no way to defend here. The position, if you go all the way back to move number 28, this is the only time where Hans had to play rook b8 and take some control back. This was the only chance for Hans Niemann. But after that, Leon just played perfectly, and he has got a position where Hans doesn't know where he went wrong, but he's wrong. The position is already lost. I mean, he plays king f2 and then rook g1, and here he takes. So there was nothing Hans could do after that missing of rook b8 move. Here, whatever you do, the next move by Leon is fixed. So, for example, if you play a5, then still the same thing will happen. So, in the game, Hans played rook b7 instead of resigning, and Leon played this beautiful rook g8, showing the problems that black is in. He's threatening rook h8 checkmate. The bishop's pinned, so you move it, you lose the rook. So here there's nothing much to do. You can play rook g7 and give up material. I mean, you can take with the rook as well, right? In that case, and then you win the rook back or the bishop back. So here Hans resigned because there is rook h8 mate coming. So what a beautiful game by the young GM from India, the new young GM, Leon Mendonca, shows that he is here to stay and defeats Hans Niemann, one of the top players in the world, in the 2700 plus club.